the labyrinth of life, where the winds of chaos and the storms of uncertainty batter us relentlessly, we must ask ourselves, how can we remain unshaken? How do we rise above anger, fear, and despair? The answer lies in a path carved by wisdom, discipline, and inner peace. This is the way of Stoicism, and today we journey together into this timeless practice. With the teachings of Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and others, we will uncover the keys to staying calm and positive. These lessons are not theories to admire from a distance, but tools to shape our minds and lives. Let us begin this odyssey, where self-mastery leads to freedom and wisdom, transforms adversity into triumph. Lesson 1. The one path to serenity. Serenity does not arise from external circumstances, but from the mastery of our inner world. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Reflect on this truth. The world will test you with suffering and joy, gain and loss, praise and blame. Yet, none of these can touch your essence unless you permit them." In this realization lies serenity, a fortress within that no storm can breach. To understand this concept more deeply, consider the story of James Stockdale, a U.S. Navy pilot who was held as a prisoner of war for 7 years during the Vietnam War. Stockdale credited his survival to the principles of Stoicism. He focused solely on what he could control: his thoughts, his discipline, and his resolve to maintain his integrity. Despite the torture and uncertainty of release, he did not allow his captors to break his spirit. Instead, he embraced the Stoic idea that while we cannot control external circumstances, we always retain power over our internal responses. If we can expect such, how can we apply this to our daily lives? Picture yourself in a scenario where you're stuck in heavy traffic, running late to an important meeting. The frustration wells up, and the mind races with unhelpful thoughts. "Why is this happening to me?" Or, "I'm going to look so unprofessional." A Stoic approach would shift the focus inward. Ask yourself, can I control the traffic? No. Can I control my reaction to it? Yes. Instead of surrendering to anger, use the moment to practice patience or reflect on how to handle the meeting once you arrive. This shift in mindset transforms a stressful situation into an opportunity for growth. Marcus Aurelius's words echo this practice. You can endure anything your mind can make endurable by treating it as in your interest to do so. This is not denial, but a deliberate reframing of adversity. The external event remains unchanged, but your perception and response, the true sources of distress, are within your control. Another example comes from professional athletes. Consider a tennis player who loses a crucial point due to a bad call by the umpire. A Stoic player, instead of dwelling on the perceived injustice, refocuses on the next point. By doing so, they conserve their energy and maintain their performance. Contrast this with a player who allows anger to dominate their thoughts, often leading to errors and a spiral of defeat. The Stoic path, choosing calm over chaos, is not just philosophically sound but pragmatically effective. In moments of personal conflict, such as an argument with a loved one, the Stoic principle also shines. When emotions flare and words become weapons, ask yourself, what is within my control? Can I control the other person's words or actions? No. Can I control my response, choosing to listen and respond with calm reasoning? Yes. By mastering your own reactions, you often diffuse tension and pave the way for constructive dialogue. To practice this principle daily, consider a simple exercise. At the end of each day, reflect on a moment that tested your serenity. Did you react impulsively, or did you remain centered? If you faltered, visualize how you might handle a similar situation in the future. This habit of reflection, deeply rooted in Stoicism, trains the mind to respond with calm and clarity over time. Serenity is not a gift bestowed upon us by favorable circumstances. It is a skill honed through the deliberate practice of controlling our perceptions and reactions. The world will always be chaotic, but by mastering our inner world, We create a haven of peace that no external force can shatter. The question is not whether the storms will come. They will. The question is, will you stand unshaken, guided by the wisdom of your inner fortress? Lesson 2. Circle of Control. Epictetus taught, some things are up to us, and some things are not. Imagine drawing a circle around yourself. Inside the circle are your thoughts, actions, and choices. Outside lie all else: opinions, outcomes, the past, and the future. Peace resides in focusing on what is within your control and releasing all else. Why waste energy on the uncontrollable when mastery of the self is the path to freedom? Consider the life of Viktor Frankl, a neurologist and psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. In the face of unimaginable suffering, he observed that even in the most dire circumstances, humans retain the ability to choose their attitude. Frankl's insight aligns with Epictetus's principle. While he could not control the cruelty of his captors, he could, by focusing on maintaining his inner dignity and finding meaning in his suffering, he preserved his humanity amidst chaos. This concept applies equally to modern life. Imagine preparing for an important presentation, only to have technical difficulties disrupt your flow. You might be tempted to panic or blame the equipment. However, a Stoic mindset encourages a different response. Acknowledge the issue, adapt your approach, and focus on the aspects you can control, such as your delivery, clarity, and engagement with the audience. By shifting your focus inward, you transform a potential disaster into an opportunity to demonstrate resilience and composure. On a smaller scale, think of everyday disagreements. Perhaps a colleague criticizes your work unfairly. The immediate reaction might be anger or defensiveness. But ask yourself, can I control their opinion? Likely not. Can I control how I respond? Absolutely. Instead of reacting impulsively, you might choose to calmly ask for clarification or explain your perspective. In doing so, you maintain your professional moment into a constructive dialogue. To bring this principle into daily practice, start with a simple visualization exercise. Every morning, take a few moments to imagine a circle around yourself. Inside, place everything you can control: your reactions, your words, your decisions. Outside, imagine all the distractions and stressors you cannot influence. As challenges arise during the day, mentally sort them into these categories. This exercise helps ground you and reinforces the habit of focusing only on what you can change. A poignant example of applying this lesson comes from the world of sports. Consider a basketball player whose team is trailing in the final minutes of the game. Instead of fixating on the scoreboard, which is beyond their immediate control, the player focuses on executing each play to the best of their ability. By staying present and controlling their effort, they not only improve their performance, but often inspire their team to. Epictetus's teaching reminds us that freedom and peace are found not in controlling the uncontrollable, but in mastering the self. When faced with setbacks, remember, the outcome is not always yours to dictate, but the way you respond to it always is. This principle, when practiced consistently, transforms frustration into clarity and chaos into calm. Finally, reflect on this question. How often do we waste energy fretting over things we cannot control? The weather, traffic, others' opinions, these are beyond our influence. Yet, when we dwell on them, we surrender our peace. Stoicism invites us to reclaim our power by turning inward and nurturing the aspects of life we can shape. As Epictetus aptly said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In mastering this lesson, we take the first step toward a life of resilience and tranquility. Lesson 3. Cut the strings that pull your mind. In life, we often find ourselves entangled in the web of others' judgments, opinions, and actions. These external forces act as invisible strings, pulling at our minds and dictating our emotions. Seneca once said, "You will be harmed only if you consent." This simple truth reminds us that the power lies within us to sever these strings and reclaim our peace. Imagine a situation where a coworker openly criticizes your ideas in a meeting. The instinctive reaction might be to feel hurt or to retaliate. However, a Stoic would pause and reflect. Is this criticism within my control? Likely it is not. What is within your control is your response. By choosing to detach emotionally and respond with reason instead of anger, you cut the strings that might otherwise manipulate your feelings. A calm, measured reply not only preserves your composure, but often earns respect from others. Consider another example from the life of Marcus Aurelius. As emperor of Rome, he faced constant criticism and betrayal, even from those closest to him. Yet, he wrote in his meditations, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil." By anticipating negativity, Marcus prepared his mind to remain unaffected. He recognized that others' actions were a reflection of their character, not his worth. This mindset allowed him to govern with clarity and fairness, free from the emotional turbulence of others' behavior. How can we practice this in our daily lives? Start by identifying the sources of mental strings. Is it a toxic relationship? Unrealistic societal expectations? Constant exposure to negative news? Once identified, consciously decide to disengage. For example, if social media fuels feelings of inadequacy, limit your time on these platforms. Replace scrolling with activities that nurture your well-being, such as reading or meditation. By doing so, you redirect your energy from external influences to internal growth. A powerful modern example of cutting mental strings comes from Olympic gymnast Simone Biles. In the 2021 Tokyo Olympics, Biles withdrew from several events to prioritize her mental health, despite immense public scrutiny. She understood that succumbing to external pressure would compromise both her well-being and performance. Her decision to step back, despite the backlash, was an act of Stoic courage. It demonstrated the power of prioritizing inner clarity over external expectations. To integrate this principle, practice the art of emotional distancing. The next time someone's words or actions provoke you, visualize a string connecting their behavior to your mind. Then imagine yourself cutting that string with an invisible blade. This simple mental exercise reinforces your autonomy and reminds you that their negativity need not dictate your state of mind. Seneca's advice also offers practical guidance. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Much of the mental turmoil we experience comes from dwelling on how others perceive us or fearing outcomes beyond our control. Recognize these thoughts for what they are, phantoms of the mind. By focusing on the present moment and your own actions, you dispel these illusions and ground yourself in reality. Ultimately, cutting the strings that pull your mind is about reclaiming your freedom. It's a deliberate choice to prioritize your inner peace over external chaos. As Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. In embracing this lesson, we free ourselves from the puppetry of external forces and step into the role of our own master. Lesson 4. Peace is in staying the course. Life often feels like an uphill battle. The moments of struggle, the obstacles that appear insurmountable, and the setbacks that sap our energy can make us question our path. Yet, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This profound insight reminds us that obstacles are not barriers, but opportunities to grow stronger. Imagine a mountaineer climbing a steep peak. Each step is met with resistance, loose rocks, biting winds, and exhaustion. Yet, with each challenge overcome, the climber becomes more resilient, more attuned to the journey. The obstacles themselves teach the skills needed to reach the summit. This is the essence of staying the course, seeing difficulties not as deterrents, but as vital parts of the journey. A historical example of this principle is Thomas Edison, who famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 1,0,0,0,0 ways that won't work." Edison's persistence in the face of repeated failures exemplifies the Stoic mindset. Instead of viewing setbacks as reasons to quit, he reframed them as steps toward innovation. His ability to stay the course, even when progress seemed elusive, ultimately led to groundbreaking inventions that transformed the world. In our own lives, we can adopt this perspective in both small and significant challenges. Consider a student struggling with a difficult subject. Each failed attempt at understanding might feel like a reason to give up, but by embracing the Stoic principle that the impediment to action advances action, the student can reframe their struggle as a learning process. Each mistake becomes a lesson, each attempt a step closer to mastery. Another real-world example comes from the world of sports. Take long-distance runners, who often hit a psychological barrier known as the wall. This is the point where their energy reserves are depleted, and their mind tells them to stop. Yet seasoned runners know that pushing through this barrier often leads to a second wind. They understand that the pain is temporary and that staying the course will ultimately lead them to the finish. This perseverance mirrors the Stoic belief that obstacles are opportunities in disguise. How can we cultivate this mindset? Start by setting clear intentions. Each morning, identify one meaningful goal and remind yourself why it matters. When challenges arise, pause and ask, "What can this teach me? How can I use this to grow?" By shifting your perspective, you transform difficulties into stepping stones. Practical exercises can also reinforce this principle. Journaling, for instance, is a powerful tool. At the end of each day, reflect on a challenge you faced and how you responded. Did you view it as a barrier or an opportunity? Over time, this practice trains your mind to naturally see the growth potential in every obstacle. Seneca's words provide further guidance. Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Just as physical exercise builds muscle, mental challenges build resilience. Embrace the discomfort, knowing that each moment of perseverance shapes you into a stronger, wiser individual. In the context of relationships, staying the course might mean working through misunderstandings with patience and empathy. Instead of avoiding tough conversations, approach them with the intent to grow together. Recognize that the friction is not a sign of failure, but an opportunity to deepen understanding and trust. Ultimately, peace is not found in avoiding difficulties, but in facing them with courage and resolve. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." By staying the course, we align ourselves with the Stoic path, a journey where every challenge becomes a teacher, every obstacle a guide. Peace is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of purpose, pursued with steadfast determination. Lesson 5. Never do anything out of habit. In the routines of daily life, it is easy to fall into patterns of mindless repetition. We wake, work, and rest, often without questioning the purpose or value of our actions. Epictetus urged us to resist this trap. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This principle challenges us to live deliberately, making conscious choices rather than succumbing to the inertia of habit. Imagine someone who begins each day by checking their phone as soon as they wake up. Without thought, this habit dictates the tone of their morning, often flooding their mind with emails, social media, and distractions before they have even had a moment of clarity. A Stoic approach would encourage breaking this cycle. Instead of defaulting to the habit, one might choose to begin the day with a moment of reflection or planning, setting a deliberate intention for the hours ahead. A historical example of breaking free from habit comes from the life of Socrates. Known for his relentless questioning, Socrates refused to accept conventional wisdom or follow societal norms without scrutiny. He constantly examined his own beliefs and encouraged others to do the same, saying, "An unexamined life is not worth living." By challenging habitual thinking, he paved the way for deeper understanding and meaningful action. This principle is equally relevant today. Consider a professional stuck in a job they dislike, but continue simply because it is familiar. A Stoic perspective would prompt them to ask, am I doing this because it aligns with my values and goals, or merely because it's what I've always done? The act of questioning habitual actions can lead to transformative decisions, such as pursuing a more fulfilling career or cultivating new skills. Another example can be found in relationships. Imagine someone who habitually responds to conflict with anger or avoidance. This pattern may feel automatic, but it is not inevitable. By recognizing the habit and consciously choosing a different response, such as listening or expressing empathy, they can foster healthier and more meaningful connections. To practice living deliberately, begin by identifying one habit in your daily life that feels automatic. Ask yourself why you perform this action and whether it serves your greater purpose. If it does not, consider how you might replace it with a more intentional behavior. For example, if you often reach for your phone during meals, try using that time to engage in conversation or savor the food in front of you. Small changes like these accumulate, reshaping your life into one of deliberate action. Epictetus's teachings also remind us to remain adaptable. Don't let your reflections on the whole sweep you off course, he advised. Even when we act with intention, circumstances may demand that we adjust our plans. By staying flexible and focused on our ultimate goals, we avoid becoming rigid or disheartened by unexpected changes. Athletes provide a compelling example of this mindset. Consider a basketball player who always takes a specific type of shot during games, but finds their opponents have adapted to block it. A Stoic athlete would not stubbornly cling to the habit. Instead, they would analyze the situation, develop new strategies, and improve their performance by embracing change. Ultimately, the lesson of rejecting mind's habit is about reclaiming control over our lives. As Marcus Aurelius observed, do every act of your life as though it were the very last act of your life. This call to presence and purpose challenges us to approach even the smallest actions with care and attention. By questioning habits, embracing deliberate action, and remaining flexible, we align ourselves with the Stoic ideal of living a life guided by reason and virtue. Each moment becomes an opportunity to act with intention, turning the mundane into the meaningful and the routine into the remarkable. Lesson 6. Reboot the real work. Life's true work lies not in the accumulation of external success, but in the cultivation of inner growth. Seneca declared, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." This teaching challenges us to reflect on how we spend our days. Are we truly engaged in meaningful pursuits, or are we distracted by trivialities? To reboot the real work of life, we must align our actions with our values and focus on what truly matters. Imagine a craftsman who spends years perfecting his trade, creating intricate works of art. Over time, he becomes distracted by the pursuit of fame and wealth, neglecting the passion that first drove him. His creations lose their soul, becoming mere products. To return to his real work, he must strip away these distractions and rediscover his purpose. The joy of creating for the sake of excellence, not external validation. A historical example comes from the life of Marcus Aurelius. Despite being an emperor with countless demands on his time, he wrote his meditations as a means of self-reflection and growth. His writings were not intended for others. They were his way of rebooting his focus on virtue and wisdom. Marcus prioritized his inner development over the trappings of power, showing us that even in the busiest lives, there is space for the real work of self-improvement. In our modern world, distractions abound. Endless notifications, social media, and the pressure to multitask often pull us away from meaningful pursuits. Consider a writer who spends more time obsessing over likes and shares than crafting thoughtful stories. To reboot the real work, they must set aside these distractions and dedicate themselves to the process of writing with integrity and depth. By doing this principle applies to relationships as well. Imagine someone who spends more time scrolling through their phone than engaging with loved ones. Over time, these small choices erode connection and intimacy. Rebooting the real work in this context means putting down the phone, being present, and nurturing meaningful conversations. It is through these deliberate acts that relationships flourish. To practice this lesson, begin each day by identifying one meaningful task that aligns with your core values. Ask yourself, if I could accomplish only one thing today, what would it be? Focus on that task with your full attention, setting aside distractions. This simple habit ensures that your energy is directed toward what truly matters. A practical exercise inspired by Stoicism is the evening review. At the end of each day, reflect on how you spent your time. Did your actions align with your values and priorities? Were there moments where distractions pulled you away from meaningful work? By identifying these patterns, you can make conscious adjustments and recommit to your purpose. Athletes provide another compelling example. Consider a runner training for a marathon. If they become preoccupied with comparing their pace to others or seeking approval on social media, their training loses focus. By returning to the fundamentals, running with discipline and listening to their body, they reboot their efforts and regain momentum toward their. Seneca's wisdom reminds us that time is our most precious resource. He wrote, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." This perspective encourages us to treat each day as an opportunity to engage fully in the work that matters most. Life's real work is not measured in accolades or possessions, but in the depth of our character and the impact of our actions. Ultimately, rebooting the real work means stripping away distractions and refocusing on what brings purpose and fulfillment. Whether in our careers, relationships, or personal growth, the Stoic path calls us to live with intention, ensuring that our time is spent on endeavors that reflect our highest aspirations. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Lesson 7. See the world like a poet and an artist. Marcus Aurelius once advised, "Dwell on the beauty of life, watch the stars, and see yourself running with them." This teaching invites us to adopt the perspective of a poet and an artist, finding beauty and inspiration even in the mundane. By seeing the world with fresh eyes, we uncover wonder and meaning that often eludes those who rush through life without pausing to observe. Imagine walking through a busy city street. To the hurried passerby, it is just a chaotic scene of noise and motion. But to the poet or artist, it is alive with stories, the laughter of children, the rhythm of footsteps, the interplay of light and shadow. By choosing to observe rather than merely look, we transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. This practice aligns with Stoic principles, teaching us to appreciate the present moment fully. A historical example can be found in the life of Leonardo da Vinci. Known for his insatiable curiosity, Da Vinci saw the world as a canvas of interconnected wonders. He studied the flight of birds, the flow of water, and the anatomy of the human body with equal fascination. This ability to perceive beauty and complexity in everything around him fueled his genius and left a legacy that continues to inspire. His life embodies the Stoic principle of engaging deeply with the world to uncover its truths. In our daily lives, we can cultivate this perspective through mindful observation. Consider the act of drinking a cup of tea. Instead of mindlessly sipping while distracted, focus on the warmth of the cup, the aroma of the tea, and the sensation of each sip. This simple act of mindfulness transforms a routine moment into a source of tranquility and appreciation. Another example comes from the practice of journaling. Marcus Aurelius's meditations are a testament to the power of reflecting on life's beauty and lessons. By journaling about the day's events, thoughts, and emotions, we develop a deeper awareness of our experiences. Over time, this habit helps us see patterns, find gratitude, and nurture a sense of wonder. In relationships, Seeing the world like a poet and artist means looking beyond surface interactions. When speaking with a loved one, truly listen to their words, observe their expressions, and appreciate the uniqueness of their perspective. This practice fosters empathy and strengthens bonds as we come to value the depth and complexity of those around us. Athletes also embody this mindset when they find beauty in the discipline of their craft. A swimmer, for instance, may marvel at the sensation of gliding through water, finding joy in the precision of each stroke. This focus on the present moment not only enhances performance, but also deepens their connection to the activity itself. To integrate this lesson into your life, set aside time each day to intentionally observe your surroundings. Take a walk and notice the details, the texture of leaves, the sound of the wind, the play of light on buildings. This practice, often referred to as nature bathing, has been shown to reduce stress and increase well-being. By immersing yourself in the beauty of the natural world, you reconnect with the present moment and find inspiration in its simplicity. Seneca's advice further reinforces this perspective. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. When we embrace the world as an artist or poet would, we free ourselves from the grip of worry and find contentment in what is. Ultimately, seeing the world like a poet and artist is not about escaping reality, but about engaging with it more deeply. It is a way of training the mind to find meaning and beauty in every experience, whether grand or small. By adopting this perspective, we enrich our lives and align with the Stoic ideal of living fully and deliberately, appreciating the profound in the everyday. Lesson 8. Wherever you go, there your choice is. Life often presents us with circumstances we cannot control, but within every moment lies the power of choice. Marcus Aurelius wisely observed, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This teaching reminds us that, no matter where we are or what we face, we retain the ability to choose our response. Imagine a prisoner confined to a small cell. At first glance, their situation appears devoid of freedom. Yet, as Viktor Frankl described in his profound work Man's Search for Meaning, even in the depths of a concentration camp, he discovered the ultimate freedom, the ability to choose his attitude. Frankl's decision to find meaning in suffering and maintain his humanity, despite horrific conditions, exemplifies the Stoic principle of inner freedom. In more everyday scenarios, this lesson remains just as relevant. Picture someone stuck in a job they dislike, surrounded by uncooperative colleagues. They may feel trapped, but the choice lies in their hands. They can either allow resentment to fester or decide to approach each day with purpose, seeking opportunities for growth and demonstrating resilience. While the external situation may not change immediately, the shift in perspective transforms their experience. A practical example can be found in parenting. Imagine a parent dealing with a defiant child. The instinctive reaction might be frustration or anger, but a Stoic parent pauses to reflect. I cannot control my child's behavior in this moment, but I can control how I respond. Choosing patience and understanding over anger not only preserves their composure, but also sets a powerful example for their child. This principle also applies to relationships. Consider a friend who frequently cancels plans at the last minute. Rather than taking offense or harboring resentment, a Stoic might choose to view the situation with empathy, recognizing that their friend's actions are not a reflection of their own worth. By reframing the narrative, they preserve their peace of mind and strengthen the bond. Athletes provide another illustration of this lesson. A runner participating in a marathon may face unexpected challenges, blisters, fatigue, or unfavorable weather. While they cannot control these external factors, they can choose how to respond. Either give up or dig deep, drawing on their training and determination to finish the race. To practice this principle, begin by cultivating awareness of your reactions. When faced with a challenging situation, pause and ask yourself, what is within my control right now? what choice can I make that aligns with my values? Over time, this habit of reflection strengthens your ability to respond intentionally rather than react impulsively. Journaling is another effective tool. At the end of each day, reflect on moments when you exercised choice. Did you respond with patience in a stressful moment? Did you choose gratitude instead of complaint? By tracking these decisions, you reinforce the importance of conscious choice and celebrate your progress. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion." This advice reminds us that we are not obligated to react to every external stimulus. Sometimes, the most empowering choice is to let go, refusing to allow external events to disrupt our inner peace. Ultimately, this lesson teaches us that true freedom is not found in controlling the world, but in mastering our responses to it. Wherever you go, there your choice is. Each moment presents an opportunity to align your actions with your highest values, to rise above circumstances, and to embrace the Stoic path of resilience and wisdom. By choosing well, we transcend the limitations of our environment and unlock the power of our inner strength. Lesson 9. Reignite your thoughts. Our thoughts are the architects of our reality. Seneca cautioned, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This insight speaks to the power of our minds to create unnecessary suffering or profound resilience. Reigniting our thoughts means reclaiming control over the narratives we tell ourselves and aligning them with logic, virtue, and purpose. Imagine someone facing financial difficulty. Their initial thoughts might spiral into panic. "I'll never recover from this." This narrative amplifies their stress, clouding their ability to act. A Stoic approach would interrupt this spiral. Instead of catastrophizing, they might say, "This is a challenge I can address step by step. What actions are within my control?" By reframing their thoughts, they shift from despair to determination, enabling constructive solutions. Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, recounts how prisoners in concentration camps endured unimaginable suffering. Those who survived often did so by finding meaning in their suffering and maintaining a sense of hope. Frankl himself found purpose by imagining lectures he would give about his experiences. This mental reframing exemplifies the Stoic principle that while external circumstances may confine us, our thoughts remain free. In modern life, consider the example of a professional preparing for a high-stakes presentation. Anxiety whispers, "You're going to fail." Left unchecked, this thought can undermine their performance. A Stoic practice would challenge this narrative. What evidence supports this fear? Have I prepared thoroughly? How can I focus on delivering value to my audience? By replacing fear-driven thoughts with rational ones, they regain confidence and clarity. This principle also applies to relationships. Imagine a misunderstanding between friends. One might think they don't value our friendship anymore, leading to hurt and distance. A Stoic perspective would pause to question this assumption. Is there evidence for this thought, or is it my interpretation? What would happen if I approach them with curiosity instead of judgment? This reframing often reveals opportunities for reconciliation and growth. Practical exercises can help reignite your thoughts. Journaling, for instance, provides a space to examine and challenge unhelpful narratives. At the end of each day, write about a moment when your thoughts shaped your emotions. Ask yourself, was my reaction based on reality or assumption? How could I think about this differently next time? Over time, this practice cultivates a habit of mindful reflection. Another technique is visualization. Before encountering a potentially stressful situation, imagine yourself responding with calm and reason. Athletes often use this method to prepare for competition. By mentally rehearsing success, they train their minds to focus on possibilities rather than pitfalls. Seneca's advice to suffer not imagined troubles also encourages us to live in the present. Much of our mental anguish stems from fears about the future or regrets about the past. By focusing on the here and now, we free ourselves from these self-inflicted burdens. This does not mean ignoring planning or reflection. but approaching them with clarity and purpose rather than worry or guilt. A powerful modern example of reigniting thoughts can be found in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. This psychological approach, rooted in principles similar to Stoicism, helps individuals identify and challenge distorted thinking patterns. For instance, someone prone to self-doubt might learn to replace thoughts like, "I'm a failure," with, "I made a mistake, but I can learn and improve." This shift fosters resilience and self-compassion. Reigniting your thoughts is not about ignoring reality, but engaging with it more constructively. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." By examining our thoughts, challenging distortions, and choosing narratives that align with wisdom and virtue, we transform our inner world. This mental discipline empowers us to navigate life's challenges with grace and fortitude. Ultimately, the practice of reigniting your thoughts is an ongoing journey. Each moment offers a chance to reframe, refocus, and renew. In doing so, we not only alleviate unnecessary suffering, but also unlock the potential for growth, resilience, and peace. With each intentional thought, we forge a path toward the Stoic ideal of a life well lived. Stoicism is not merely a philosophy to ponder, but a guide to living with intention and resilience. Its lessons teach us that while we cannot control external events, we hold immense power over our minds and choices. By embracing principles like focusing on our circle of control, cutting the strings of negative influences, and reigniting our thoughts, in practice, Stoicism calls us to pause amidst life's chaos and ask, what truly matters? Are our actions guided by wisdom and virtue, or are we adrift in habits and fears? The answers lie within our ability to reflect and act deliberately. When faced with difficulties, let us choose clarity over confusion, courage over retreat, and each day is a chance to build our inner fortress brick by brick, not through perfection, but through persistence. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Let us live as architects of our own serenity, finding peace not in the absence of adversity, but in the strength to meet it with grace.